Airports are filled with strangers passing in the night. But sometimes, the person sitting next to you isn't just another tired traveler. Sometimes, they're watching you. Not out of curiosity, but because your life is already tangled in something far bigger than you can imagine. For Ethan Brooks, a single dad just trying to get his daughter home, one cancelled flight would lead to an encounter that changed everything. A night beside a woman who wasn't who she seemed, and a morning where safety became a game of survival. This is their story. The soft hum of Heathrow Airport at midnight was oddly calming. Ethan Brooks adjusted his worn leather jacket, pulling it tighter around himself as he sat slouched in the uncomfortable plastic chair. Beside him, his 8-year-old daughter Lily had curled up into a ball, her small head resting against his arm. She was fast asleep, clutching the well-loved stuffed bunny that had been her comfort since she was a toddler. It wasn't the first time they had been stuck in an airport overnight, but it was the first time Ethan had felt this. Exposed. The last flight to Edinburgh had been cancelled because of bad weather, and all nearby hotels were fully booked. So, like dozens of other weary travelers, they were stranded until morning. He looked down at Lily and felt the familiar mix of guilt and pride. Guilt, because his life had been a series of compromises since her mother walked out when Lily was just 2. Pride because despite it all, Lily was a happy child. Bright, curious, and endlessly forgiving. Ethan let out a slow sigh and glanced at the empty seat beside him. Well, it had been empty. A woman had just taken the spot, and she was quietly removing her coat. He caught himself staring for a second too long. She was striking, tall, with dark hair pulled into a low ponytail and sharp green eyes that seemed to notice everything. Her navy blazer looked expensive but practical, the kind worn by people who needed to move quickly yet still look respectable. She carried no obvious luggage, just a slim black messenger bag. "Long night?" she asked, her voice calm and low with a faint American accent. "Something like that," Ethan replied, rubbing the back of his neck. "Flight got cancelled. They told us to try again in the morning." She nodded as if she had expected the answer. "Yeah. Airports have a way of humbling you. No matter who you are." Her choice of words stuck with him, though he couldn't quite say why. Lily stirred slightly, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," she whispered sleepily. "Hey, kiddo. Go back to sleep," Ethan murmured. The woman smiled warmly at Lily before reaching into her bag. "Here," she said, pulling out a small packet of gummy bears. "For when she wakes up properly. They're fresh, bought them today." Ethan hesitated for a fraction of a second. He wasn't in the habit of accepting things from strangers. But something about her demeanor felt safe. "Thanks. That's kind of you." "You're welcome," she said, her lips curling into a faint smile. Then, without another word, she leaned back in her seat, eyes scanning the vast terminal as if she were mapping every detail. Ethan tried to settle in, but his mind kept wandering back to her. There was something unusual about this woman. She didn't seem like the typical stranded traveler. She wasn't fidgeting with her phone, complaining about the delay, or trying to sleep. Instead, she sat alert, as if waiting for something or someone. After an hour, his eyelids grew heavy. Lily was still curled against him, her breathing slow and steady. The woman beside him seemed lost in thought, yet every so often, her gaze would flicker toward him, almost too quickly to notice. For weeks, the FBI's legal attaché office in London had been coordinating with Europol on a sensitive operation. Ethan Brooks, unwittingly, was connected to a man they were tracking. Claire's orders were simple. Shadow him, learn his patterns, and make sure he didn't slip off the radar. But sitting beside him now, watching him gently adjust his daughter's blanket, Claire found herself fighting something unfamiliar. Empathy. She had read his file. A single father, former mechanical engineer, now working odd jobs. There was no indication he was a criminal. If anything, he seemed like a man trying to keep his head above water. Still, orders were orders. Hours passed. Around 3 a.m., the terminal grew quieter. Most travelers had given up on staying awake. Ethan felt his head dip forward, and before he knew it, he had drifted into an uneasy sleep. Claire remained awake, her posture relaxed but her senses razor-sharp. She kept her phone in her hand, pretending to scroll, but in reality, she was updating her contact in real time. Every few minutes, she stole a glance at Ethan. His breathing was steady, his arm securely around Lily. Then, something unexpected happened. Lily stirred again, this time lifting her head to look at Claire. "Are you an angel?" she asked in a sleepy voice. Claire's breath caught. "No, sweetheart," she said gently. "Just a traveler like you." But Lily shook her head. "You're watching us. Angels watch people." Ethan half woke, blinking in confusion. "What's going on?" "Nothing," Claire said quickly, her voice light. "Just chatting with your daughter." Ethan smiled faintly, too tired to think much of it. "She's got a wild imagination." Claire returned the smile, but inside she felt a pang of guilt. Because Lily was right, she was watching them. Not out of kindness but because it was her job. And in a few hours, everything Ethan thought about this chance encounter would begin to change. By dawn, the airport was buzzing again. The smell of fresh coffee drifted through the air, and the low rumble of rolling suitcases filled the terminal. Ethan woke with a stiff neck, blinking away the remnants of uneasy dreams. Beside him, Lily was already awake, swinging her legs and munching happily on the gummy bears Claire had given her. "Morning," Claire said, her tone casual but her eyes still sharp. "Morning," Ethan replied, rubbing his eyes. "Guess we made it through the night." "Barely," she said with a faint smirk. "I've had worse." Ethan chuckled. "You travel a lot." "More than I'd like," she replied, adjusting the strap of her messenger bag. "Work keeps me on the move." Ethan didn't push for details. He'd learned the hard way that some people preferred to keep their lives private. Still, there was something about her. Calm, controlled, as if nothing could rattle her. He found himself curious despite himself. They walked together toward the check-in desk for their respective flights. Or so Ethan thought. In reality, Claire's ticket was just a cover. She was booked on whatever flight would keep her close to him. Lily clung to her father's hand, occasionally glancing at Claire as if she'd already decided the woman was some kind of secret superhero. At one point, Lily leaned close to her father and whispered, "I like her." Ethan smiled, but before he could respond, a sudden movement near the security gates caught Claire's attention. Two men in dark coats entered the terminal. They moved with a purpose, scanning the crowd. Claire's instincts flared instantly. She subtly stepped closer to Ethan and Lily, her voice dropping. "Stay close to me." Ethan frowned. "What? Why?" "Just humor me," she said, her tone firm but not panicked. The men's eyes swept the terminal until they locked briefly on Ethan. One of them muttered something to the other before they split apart, each heading in a different direction. Ethan's brow furrowed. "Do you know them?" "Not exactly," Claire replied, though technically it wasn't a lie. She had seen their faces in briefings. Associates of a smuggler currently under investigation. The smuggler's name was Victor Dane, and unbeknownst to Ethan, he had once worked for the same shipping company where Ethan had done some contract jobs. That thin, unintentional connection was enough to make Ethan a person of interest. Claire scanned the crowd, weighing her next move. She could maintain her cover, let events unfold, and gather intel, or she could step in and risk revealing who she was. Her training screamed for patience. Her gut told her otherwise. "Ethan," she said quietly, "how well do you know your former co-workers from North Shore Shipping?" He blinked in confusion. Not well. I was just a contractor for a few months." "Why?" Before she could answer, one of the men reappeared, this time closing the distance toward them. Claire made her decision. In one swift motion, she stepped in front of Ethan and Lily, her body angled to shield them. Her hand rested on the inside of her jacket, right where her concealed badge and firearm were. The man stopped short, his expression tightening. Without a word, he turned and melted back into the crowd. Ethan stared at her. "Okay. You're not just some random traveler, are you?" Claire exhaled slowly. "No, I'm not." They moved to a quieter corner near an empty cafe. Claire kept her back to the wall, her eyes sweeping the terminal even as she spoke. My name is Claire Donovan. I'm with the FBI. Ethan laughed once, a short, incredulous sound. Right. And I'm James Bond. She pulled out her badge and ID, holding it just long enough for him to read. I'm not joking. Ethan's face shifted from disbelief to something darker. Why are you watching me? It's complicated, she said carefully. You're not in trouble. But you may have been in proximity to someone we're investigating. I was assigned to keep you in sight until we knew more. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration flashing in his eyes. So you've been following me. Sitting next to me all night wasn't a coincidence. No, she admitted. It wasn't. Lily, sensing the tension, tugged on her father's sleeve. Daddy, what's going on? Ethan crouched down, forcing a smile for her. Nothing for you to worry about, sweetheart. But his mind was racing. Every moment from last night, the way she watched the crowd, the careful way she spoke, suddenly made sense. And yet, despite the fact that she had essentially lied to him, he didn't feel anger so much as confusion. If she was FBI, then those men must have been dangerous. Which meant his daughter had been in danger without him even realizing it. Claire glanced at her watch. Listen. Your flight's in an hour. I'll stay close until you're safely boarded. After that, I'll be in touch. In touch. You make it sound like this isn't over. It's not, she said bluntly. I think those men were here for you. Not because of anything you've done, but because of what you might know. Ethan shook his head. I don't know anything. Maybe not consciously, she replied. But you worked in a place where information passes quietly. Sometimes you pick up details without realizing it. He studied her for a long moment. So what now? Now, she said, scanning the crowd again. You trust me. Ethan wasn't sure he could. And yet, there was something in her voice, calm, steady, that made him want to believe her. But as they walked toward the gate, neither of them knew that this was only the beginning. The men in dark coats weren't done. And before the day was over, Ethan and Claire would be thrown together in a way neither of them could have predicted. The departure board flashed final call for Ethan's flight to Edinburgh. Claire walked a half step ahead of him and Lily, her gaze sweeping every corner of the terminal. Every instinct told her the two men from earlier hadn't left. Predators didn't just give up, they circled back when you least expected it. They reached the gate, but Claire didn't slow down. Instead of handing over her boarding pass, she pulled Ethan to the side. You're not getting on that flight, she said quietly. Ethan's brow furrowed. What? Why? You said you'd see us safely on the plane. I said I'd keep you safe, she corrected. That flight is compromised. Before Ethan could respond, her phone buzzed. She glanced at the message. Encrypted and brief. Possible intercept at gate 14. Hold your asset. Relocate. Her jaw tightened. She pocketed the phone and scanned the crowd. A tall man in a gray coat stood near the coffee kiosk, pretending to read a newspaper. Another, wearing a baseball cap, was positioned closer to the gate, eyes flicking between passengers. They're here, Claire murmured. Ethan's pulse spiked. They. As in the same guys. Or worse, she said. Follow me. Stay close. She led them down a service corridor marked staff only. Ethan hesitated. We can't go back here. We can, she cut in firmly. And we are. Claire swiped a card through the security panel. The door clicked open and they slipped inside. It was quieter here, the hum of the airport replaced by the faint echo of their footsteps on the linoleum floor. Where are we going? Ethan asked. Somewhere they can't follow without drawing attention, Claire replied. My team is already moving in. They emerged into a maintenance area where a nondescript black SUV waited. A man in plain clothes stepped out, flashed a badge and nodded at Claire. We've got them on cameras. 2 suspects. No contact yet. Good. Keep it that way, she said. We'll do the handoff at the secondary location. Ethan's head was spinning. This is insane. Why would anyone target me? I'm just a mechanic who once worked on a shipment Victor Dane needed moved through customs. Claire finished for him. Your signature was on the inspection form. You probably didn't even remember signing it. Ethan's stomach dropped. So that's what this is about. Some stupid form. Not stupid, Claire said. That shipment contained encrypted tech they were smuggling into Europe. You were the last verifiable person to see the container before it vanished. That makes you a loose end. The SUV pulled away from the airport, weaving through early morning traffic. Lily, surprisingly calm, sat between Ethan and Claire, sipping a juice box from the vehicle's small cooler. Ethan leaned toward Claire, his voice low. So what happens now? Witness protection? Secret safe house? Or do you just disappear and leave me wondering if I'm being followed for the rest of my life? She met his eyes. That depends on you. You could cooperate, tell us everything you remember, and we'll make sure you and Lily are safe. Or you could walk away now, pretend this never happened, and keep looking over your shoulder. He looked down at his daughter, who was humming softly to herself, oblivious to the danger. His choice was obvious. I'll help, he said finally. Just keep her safe. Claire allowed herself a small smile. You have my word. They reached a discreet government building on the outskirts of the city. Inside, the fluorescent lights and plain walls gave nothing away. Claire guided them to a secure room, where two agents waited to take Ethan's statement. It took hours of questions, details, and trying to remember things he'd never thought were important. Through it all, Claire stayed in the background, occasionally stepping in to clarify. When they were finally done, the other agents left, and Ethan sank into the chair, exhausted. You're good at this, he said, eyeing her. The whole, keeping calm while the world spins out of control thing. It's part of the job, she replied. But there was a softness in her eyes now, something she didn't usually let show. You did well today. Most people panic. I didn't have the luxury, he said, glancing at Lily, who was now asleep on the couch. For a moment, silence settled between them, not tense but charged. Something unspoken passed between their eyes. Claire looked away first. By late afternoon, Ethan and Lily were escorted to a secure hotel. Claire stood by the door as he turned to face her. So, this is it, he asked. For now, she said. You'll be under surveillance, friendly surveillance. My team will check in regularly. He nodded slowly. Guess I owe you more than a thank you. You don't owe me anything, she said, though her voice softened. Just stay safe. Lily woke just in time to wave at her. Bye, Angel. Claire's lips curved into the faintest smile. Bye, kiddo. As the door closed between them, Ethan realized something unexpected. In less than 24 hours, a stranger had gone from suspicious to someone he trusted with his life. And maybe, just maybe, this wouldn't be the last time they crossed paths. Because when an FBI agent watches you all night, it's rarely the end of the story.